Israel was reminded of the multi-front nature of the war as a ballistic missile fired by Houthi terrorists in Yemen penetrated Israeli airspace before being shot down over central Israel. The attack came as the cabinet prepared to widen the goals of the war to possibly include the return of Israelis to their homes in the north. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
Central Israel was awakened early this morning by alarms triggered by a ballistic missile fired by Houthis from Yemen that entered Israeli airspace. 5 people were lightly injured while running to safe rooms as residents of the targeted areas hurried to safety. The missile managed to enter Israeli airspace, setting off multiple alarms around the center of the country. The IDF said that Arrow air defense systems shot down the missile and pieces of shrapnel fell in the Gaza Regional Council, including the Patei Modi'in train station. Minor damages were caused to the train station. The impact of the fallen missile was in an empty area several kilometers from Ben Gurion Airport, which was the apparent target. Firefighters had to be called in to battle blazes in the Ben Shemen forest. Most rockets fired from Yemen are shot down outside Israeli airspace. This was the 3rd time a missile managed to enter but not reach its target. The Army is investigating why the detection came late. Meanwhile, the cabinet is expected to declare the return of northern residents to their homes as an official goal of the war. The expected vote will come after another weekend of heavy incoming rocket fire into northern Israel, with many rockets targeting the city of Tzfat. Prime Minister Netanyahu and security heads held strategic discussions concluding that Israel was facing a large-scale confrontation with Hezbollah while maintaining military pressure on Hamas in Gaza. According to reports from the Prime Minister's office, Netanyahu is convinced that Israel is headed for an all-out confrontation with Hezbollah in the north to force an end to the near-daily cross-border tit-for-tat with Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon and allow conditions for some 80,000 evacuated residents to return safely to their homes near the Lebanese border. Over the weekend, the north was bombarded with some 55 projectiles fired towards the city of Tzfat. Most were intercepted or fell in open areas. There were no injuries reported. Israeli jets struck many Hezbollah operatives and targets across South Lebanon.
Day 345 of the war in Gaza, the IDF has declared the defeat of Hamas's Rafah brigade in the south. But in northern Gaza, the IDF ordered the evacuation of Beit Lahia after Hamas rocket fire targeted Ashkelon. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The IDF says the last standing military formation of the Hamas terrorists in Rafah have been defeated. At least 2,300 Hamas operatives in Rafah have been killed by IDF forces. The commander of the offensive said, Hamas's 4 battalions in Rafah have been destroyed and we have complete operational control over the entire urban area. Hamas is reduced to terrorist cells operating in a number of areas in Gaza. Now, the IDF maintains control of the entire city of Rafah and the Philadelphia corridor border area with Egypt. Combat engineers are completing investigations of a few remaining Hamas tunnels that have yet to be demolished, an operation that will not take longer than a few weeks. Out of the 203 tunnels the IDF has so far located, a total of 9 have crossed into Egypt, but every single one had been blocked up before the IDF arrived, either by Egyptian authorities or by Hamas themselves. The IDF spokesman lit 6 candles in memory of the hostages who were murdered in a Tel HaSultan tunnel.
We have 101 hostages. We have 101 hostages. Women, children, the elderly. They are all in Gaza, being held by Hamas in brutal conditions like this tunnel. Horrific conditions. We need to do everything we can, in all means, to bring them back home. To bring them back home. This is one of the goals of the war, and we will achieve it.
Over the weekend, Hamas managed to fire rockets from Gaza targeting Ashkelon. As a result, the IDF ordered evacuations in North Gaza's Beit Lahia neighborhood. The 2 rockets were launched at Ashkelon, with one intercepted and the other impacting in the sea. The IDF in recent months has repeatedly issued evacuation orders for areas from which terrorists launch rockets at Israel.
Joining me now is military and diplomatic strategist at the Misgav Institute for National Security and Zionist Strategy, Colonel in the Reserves, Dr. Hanan Shai. Thank you for joining, Hanan.
Thank you.
Hanan, in your recent blog post, you argue that Israel's security strategy has shifted from its original defensive doctrine written by its original Prime Minister Ben-Gurion. Can you explain your argument here?
Yes, the original defense policy was to remove threats of Israel before they attack Israel, because Israel doesn't have the ability to protect itself on the borders and, of course, inside its borders. It was a lesson that was learned from the War of Independence, and he said when he declared it in the Knesset in the June 20th, 1950, he said, "We shall never fight again a long war and inside Israel. It will never happen again." And therefore, he declared about this concept, yes, that the enemy or the threat should be removed in a preemptive attack. When Israel will decide that this is the time to remove it. And by the way, this is the way that the threats were removed in the past. Mentioning the 56 war, we only waited for the opportunity, and there was an opportunity. The war that the British and the French launched towards Egypt, and we joined them. And we removed the threat, which was of course, the new Soviet munition that that the Egyptians were getting from the USSR, and we did it in '82 in Lebanon. When the PLO, it was a military and a complete organized ordinary military, a terror military, of course, like the ordinary militaries now in the Gaza Strip and in Lebanon, and we removed it. We waited for the opportunity, and the opportunity came. Well, of course, we are very sorry. When the ambassador in Britain was attacked. And so we did it and removed it. And for more than 20 years, there were no rockets towards Israel.
So in short, you emphasize the importance of swift military action and preventing attacks outside of Israel's borders, not inside Israel's borders. How do you assess the current Israeli military strategy in Gaza? Was Israel too reactive rather than proactive?
We are not leading. We are led by the enemy, and the reason is that we neglected the policy. And it's not only neglecting the policy; we neglected the ability to launch not a preemptive but a preventive attacks, which means you have to prepare yourself very well ahead. And the fact is that we didn't have any contingency planning to enter the Gaza Strip and to take it over. We didn't have it. So we were not ready. And it is a policy, a military policy, a military revolution. It's not only in Israel, by the way. It's in the all Western countries, especially in NATO. We can see it. They are not ready to war because of the post-communism era and the end of history, of Fukuyama's end of history era. Yes? And so we have now, we have on one hand to fight and on the other hand to prepare ourselves, to build ourselves. We were not built to such a war. And therefore it takes time, and I hope we shall do well. And because we are doing well, at the tactical level, we are doing very well.
I see. Dr. Hanan Shai, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The multi-front war includes Judea and Samaria, where the IDF anti-terror operation is currently focused in Tulkarem and Tubas. More from ILTV, Steve Leibowitz.
The ongoing anti-terror operation is focused in Tulkarem and Tubas in northern Samaria. 10 armed terrorists were eliminated in airstrikes and face-to-face exchanges of fire. One of the terrorists killed is Mohammed Abu Atiyah, suspected of killing Major Maxim Rizkov on October 19th. Rizkov was killed by an improvised explosive device that was hurled at border police forces carrying out an arrest raid in Tulkarem. In addition, a vehicle was located with explosive charges and a remote activation system that was destroyed by police. Forces also confiscated weapons, including sniper rifles and other combat equipment. The IDF located and destroyed 4 explosive laboratories.
In a latest development in an act of psychological warfare, Hamas has released a video of hostage Matan Angrist pleading for Netanyahu to agree to a prisoner release in exchange for the hostages. ILTV's Ariel Alachiani has more.
In a remarkable and emotional development, a first sign of life emerged this Saturday from Matan Angrist, the IDF soldier captured in Gaza during the brutal attack on October 7th. Severely wounded and unconscious when taken, Matan has now been seen in a recently discovered video from his captivity. In the propaganda video, which is a form of psychological terror commonly used by Hamas, Angrist directly appeals to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, urging him to act swiftly to secure his release through a prisoner exchange. The audio was made public by Angrist's mother, Anat Angrist, during a protest demanding action for the captives. Angrist's voice, full of hope, conveys trust in the Prime Minister's ability to bring him home. It is the first confirmation his family has received in months that he is still alive. Angrist, who served in a tank unit, was captured alongside fellow soldiers Itai Chen, Daniel Peretz and Tomer Leibovitz, all of whom were tragically killed during the battle in Gaza. Their families, like many others, continue to seek answers and justice for their loved ones. The family of slain hostage Alex Lobanov also made a heart-wrenching decision, authorizing the release of a video showing the dire conditions he endured in captivity before being killed by Hamas. The hostages' families forum has called Lobanov's final plea, filmed under immense duress, a stark reminder of the brutality faced by those still held in Gaza. As Israel rallies behind its captured soldiers, the growing urgency for a comprehensive prisoner deal weighs heavily on the nation's consciousness. The families of Matan Angrist, Alex Lobanov, and many others continue to hold out hope for their loved ones' safe return.
Joining me now is Yoni Asher, whose wife and children were kidnapped on October 7th and held captive by Hamas in Gaza for 49 days. They were released in November during a hostage exchange deal with Hamas. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yoni, this has been a turbulent year, certainly for your family and for others who are still in this ordeal. First of all, I want to express the relief we felt at the safe return of your wife, Doron, and your children, Raz and Aviv, along with the other hostages who were returned and rescued later on. How have they been coping since their release?
Well, thank you. It's very much complicated. On one hand, they are very little, very young, and they are only 5.5 and 3.5-year-old. And when they were abducted, they were 2.5 and 4.5-year-old. So along this period of time, we had to cope with a lot of difficulties, with all the joy and with all the even the euphoria that was in the days after their return. Eventually, you need to put them to sleep at night. You need to get them back to their structures, and you need to make sure that they will grow up with much less trauma than they're supposed to be. And I want to mention that no one has any experience, professional experience, in this kind of matter. This is not something that this is unprecedented. So we have to follow our own instinct as parents.
That must be incredibly hard. How do you begin to rebuild a sense of normalcy after such a traumatic experience?
Like I mentioned, you need to follow your instinct. I can tell you that it is before October 7, they were sleeping the whole night. And today they are not. They are waking up every night in the middle of the night. Sometimes it's a nightmare, sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter. But for us as parents, is getting back to the period of time where we were waking up at night. But only now, it's with fears and with crime, and sometimes it can be quite difficult.
What was the most difficult part of those 49 days for you and your family, not knowing what was happening to them?
I think that the uncertainty is something that can torture a person, that can damage his personal health, physical and mental. The uncertainty, and I want to reflect by saying that on the rest of the families who is still waiting for their loved ones, the uncertainty can do so much damage. Me, for only 49 days, and I can tell you, I had to deal with physical and mentally difficulties even after their return, maybe especially after their return. Because there is no possibility that such an event will be without repercussions and without any price to pay.
Absolutely. And like you say, while your family is now home and you get to try to heal and move forward, as difficult as that may be, there are still so many hostages left in Gaza. Some we sadly know are already dead, but many we presume are still alive. Do you remain in contact with the other families who are still waiting for their loved ones to return?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is not only my personal pain. I know most of the families. I spent time with them, and I had many conversations with them. The amount of stories that I heard about, every family of hostages almost has people that got murdered on October 7th, and in the most horrific way. Mothers that lost their daughters and had to see them, and fathers and sisters. So I heard all these stories firsthand so many times, for so many different stories. I don't think it's even, you can even bear something like that. So I still in contact with them today, and I feel their pain each and every moment.
With no new hostage deal in sight, just shortly, can you tell me what do you believe can or should be done to bring the remaining hostages home?
I am not a diplomatic or military expert, so I don't have the exact information to determine whether some kind of action, this or that, can affect. I think that Israel has the power to do so. I think that the world coalition, that it's obvious to me today that we share the same enemies. And I believe that the United States and the European Western countries can leverage their power, can do more. I heard Chuck Schumer, and I heard many of the administration people in the US, and I want to believe that they are doing everything they can. Yet, I think this is something that it's very difficult to negotiate in front of a terror organization that even feel free to their leadership, feeling free to demand guarantees for their lives. So I want to ask you, is someone is going to give me a guarantee for my family life? Because if Yahya Sinwar wants a guarantee for his life, well, I want to ask that also. And I think that they need to do everything they can to leverage their power. Also France, also Britain, also Germany, also the United States. They have the power, they have the pressure means. Everybody knows that. So do it. Don't wait any longer.
Yoni Asher, thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you.
The World Health Organization conducted its largest medical evacuation since October 2023, bringing civilians in need of care to the United Arab Emirates. More on this from Editor-in-Chief Mayan Hoffman.
The World Health Organization evacuated nearly 100 people, including dozens of children, from Gaza to the United Arab Emirates at the end of last week, calling for regular medical transfers out of the enclave to resume. According to WHO Representative Richard Pieperkorn, this was the largest evacuation from Gaza since October 2023.
Patients included 45 children and 52 adults with a range of diseases. I'll not go in the numbers, but ranging from blood diseases, cancer, cardiovascular disease, congenital anomalies, ear conditions, endocrine diseases, eye conditions, immunological disorders, liver disease, renal disease, skin conditions, and of course, trauma, a lot of trauma.
Additionally, the WHO reported that around 560,000 children under the age of 10 were vaccinated against polio during the first phase of an emergency vaccination campaign. The campaign, conducted from September 1st to the 12th, has now been paused, but is expected to resume for a second round in about 4 weeks.
We are happy with this polio campaign. And I think we are also quite confident that we reached an enormous amount of children in this short time. And I think we are confident that we probably reached the target. What we want to reach 90% plus of our target.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is scheduled to address the United Nations General Assembly later this month on September 27th. His 5-day visit to the U.S. comes during a time of heightened security tensions with the ongoing war in Gaza, the constant rocket fire from Hezbollah in Lebanon, and missile threats from the Houthis in Yemen. Netanyahu's speech is expected to focus on Israel's security and regional challenges. There is speculation he may also touch on diplomatic efforts, including talks surrounding normalization with Saudi Arabia, as well as domestic challenges like judicial reforms. Netanyahu's stay will span over the entire long weekend, marking an extended visit, including the Sabbath, and focusing on both diplomatic and internal Israeli issues. The timing of his appearance at the UN places him at a critical juncture for addressing global leaders, especially given the ongoing tensions, threats, and regional instability here in Israel. His appearance highlights Israel's pursuit of strengthening international alliances while navigating very complex domestic and foreign policy challenges.
Sagot Winery, where passion meets tradition. Nestled in the heart of Binyamin, our vineyards yield exquisite wines crafted with generations of expertise.
Let's take a look at the weather forecast. Partly cloudy skies are expected tonight around the country as temperatures will reach lows of around 23 degrees Celsius or 74 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow, scattered showers are expected in the south, while the north should see partly cloudy skies and temperatures at highs of around 30 degrees Celsius or 87 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channel, subscribe to our newsletter, and explore our website, iltv.tv. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Sivan Raviv. Be well, be safe, and thank you so much for watching.